Welcome to the 52blu podcast, brought to you by Concertfy, Experience Music. The 52blu podcast is recorded at the Music Box in Redondo Beach, California. Joining us today in the studio is Anastasia Lynne, singer-songwriter working on her first album. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you.
And it's a pleasure to have you here. We're going to talk about your career and how you got into music and current and future projects. So we're really happy to get into those topics. So first, I just want to introduce you. You are a California native. You grew up in Marietta, close to
Marietta.
Marietta. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, close to Temecula.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've lived here all your life, or have you had time away, like in different states, or?
No, California, whole time.
Okay. And then you moved to the greater LA part of the city and went to, attended Riverside Community College, and that's when you got into voice or music?
Riverside was when I was still living in Marietta. I was commuting there. And then when I came here was when I started going to Fullerton for music.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, I've heard a couple of the recordings that you have, and, first of all, you have a really good voice.
Thanks.
And we'll dive into that in a little bit. But tell me how you kind of discovered your voice, or that using your voice was something that you were really interested in actually developing and doing.
Well, when I was younger, my grandma always sang, so she's like the singer of the family pretty much, and like had the most beautiful voice, and she had like a church choir, and I just remember growing up when I was younger hearing her sing, and then one of my oldest cousins started singing, and she would play guitar and sing, and then we would gather at like family at holidays with the family, like around the fire, and sing like Christmas tunes around the piano and stuff like that. And so I guess my mom's side is all very musical. Mm-hmm. And then once my cousin started playing guitar and singing, I was like, well, I want to do that. And then I just always liked singing, I guess, since I was young, and I always wanted to be in choir. So I think I started in like second grade, because you could do it until second grade. Yeah, it was kind of always a part of my life, but I don't think I ever really... I think it was always like a dream of mine, but I never really thought that it was possible, because I guess I thought I was tone deaf when I was like growing up, because I don't know, you don't really hear your voice. And then I was trying out for some choirs in middle school, and I never made the advanced choir. And so it kind of pissed me off, and I was like, well, what the heck, like, I really want to do this. I think I remember like crying one night, like, oh, I think I'm tone deaf, like I'm so sad. And then my mom, she let me start taking voice lessons from my choir teacher. And so in 8th grade, I was still not in the advanced choir, and all my older friends, they were all in the choir. So I was I was jealous, and I was like, well, what the heck, like, this is a huge dream for me. And I would watch my friends like sing solos and stuff, and I was just like, gosh, like, I want to do that. Like, so anyway, then my mom was like, okay, we can get you lessons. So I started taking lessons, and then my choir teacher was like, wow, you have a voice there. And so we started developing it. And then I remember at the end of 8th grade, we all tried out for high school choir. And there was like, the advanced choir, I think, had like 40 girls in it or something, 30 to 40, and they were all auditioning, and then I was auditioning, and a few people from my class who were in 8th grade. The rest were in like 7th and 6th, so they weren't moving to high school yet. But so we all auditioned, and then I remember we came to look at the list on the door, and only 7 girls made it into the advanced choir out of all those girls, and the rest would, I guess, go into the beginning. And I was one of the 7, even though I wasn't in the advanced choir there. So I think that at that moment I was like, okay, if I put in the work, I'm not tone deaf. Like I have something, I just kind of have to cultivate it. Like I had to put the work in. So I think at that point it kind of became like, okay, I can do this. And then I started going after it. But I mean, I always wanted to do it. So I think the only thing that would have held me back is if I was tone deaf.
Yeah.
Because you can't really fix that. I mean, you can, but it's a lot of work.
A choir requires you to do two things. One is to know your voice, and then know everybody else's voice, so you don't kind of go with that. Especially if in the arrangement you're closer. Yeah. Were you a soprano or?
I started as an alto. I found out I actually a soprano. So I was soprano 2, mezzo soprano.
Yeah, and I think like a difficulty there is that you've got you do have to be even more careful not to go into the other lines if and if there's tenors and bass it's a whole other thing. So it requires that kind of strategy of mentally focusing on your part, on your cues, especially if there's different like silences and parts where you're singing a little bit more. So did you like single projects, or was it only mostly focused on the choir type of music?
I don't think I was ever solely doing choir. I think even before choir, I very much like to sing by myself, and like so I think I was already kind of getting into that. Like I think when I was starting my voice lessons, we were working on Paramore and trying to sing that crazy Hayley Williams style, which she has like a crazy voice. But I think that really helped me open up with like that. That's not quite my style that I sing, and it's not best suited for my voice, but I think stretching it in that way took it there. So I'd say I had already kind of wanted to, but I still didn't. Even though I had made it, I still wasn't quite sold on the fact that I was capable of singing a solo. But once I got into high school, like my freshman year, I still was like, okay, I felt like I wanted to sing solos. I was like, I know, I have to, but I'm not the kind of person that's just going to think I can do something and go do it. Like I will get, I think, advice before. So I was on the cheerleading team, and I grabbed like 2 or 3 of my close girlfriends, and I was like, hey, can you come hear me sing this song like behind this wall real quick? Just tell me if it sounds okay, because I'm going to try out for the talent show. And they're like, okay. And so we like go behind this like wall over by the gym area, and I made them turn around because I didn't want them like looking at me, you know how that goes. And then I sang Put Your Records On for them. And they were like shocked, and they were like, you've got to try out. And so at that point I was like, okay, like these girls I know wouldn't lie, So then I went and auditioned, and I got it, and then and the talent show came along, and then I sang there, and then we got 3rd place. So that was pretty cool. And I think after like that kind of a thing, that's when I really started pouring into it on my own. Then I started preparing for solos like throughout the year. Like we would have just choir shows, but we would like with like classical stuff, pieces and stuff like that. But there would be like a Valentine's Day show, and it would be all pop. And then we would have our variety show, which was musical theater at the end. And then, they had like talent shows and stuff. So I started, grabbing some of my friends who played guitar and being like, could you learn this piece? And then I'm going to sing a solo. And then I started putting like, okay, could you girls come sing harmonies? So I just kind of started doing that. And then towards the end of my high school, there would be like dance production or something. And then people were starting to be like, oh, Anastasia sings, like you should have her sing. So then I would sing while like 2 of my friends danced at the dance production. And then they had like a Mr. Nighthawk with like all the senior boys doing stuff, and my friend got sick. So I went and sang like during an intermission or something there. And then they were like, okay, like, you I like, oh, if we need a singer, we ask Anastasia, blah, blah, blah. And so I just I think I put more time into all that. Mm-hmm. Like that was mainly my main focus. I mean, I loved singing in choir, and like it's nice, it's cool, you can sing really cool pieces where you're building like chords that are just like incredible. Like we did some Eric Whitacre pieces, which I don't know if you've heard of him, but like his voicings and things with the chords are just amazing. And when you hear like a bunch of people, just like there's no instrumentation, nothing, it's strictly voices, it's like jaw-dropping. And then when you're creating that, like, it's really cool. And I think as far as being a musician, that it grew my ear, because you're not only, like you said, focusing on your voice, and you do have to know your voice. You have to know, like, okay, when I hit these notes, I get a little too nasally, or I get a little too this. So in order to blend with the voices next to me to get the kind of tone that the teacher wants for this certain piece, I have to tone it down, and I had to bring my voice back. So I think it taught me a lot of control, and a lot of, like, knowing when to be louder and when to be softer, but kind of being a part of a bigger thing. It's not just about you, you know. Right. Whereas solos, it's very you, like, you can't just shy away, you know what I mean? Like, you're the voice that's carrying it. So I would say, like, it was like a mixture, but definitely more, like, focused on the solos and stuff like that. Because, I mean, I don't know. I liked it more. Yeah,
definitely. And then during that time, particularly once you discovered your voice and were actually doing things that were allowing you to both showcase your voice, but also dive a little bit more intentionally into the path of, you know, a music career. What was the reaction with your family at that time? Were they supportive? Were they, you know, seeing that there was an opportunity or talent and tried to nourish that? Or was it like, it's more like a hobby, you know, you might do something else? Or how did that happen within your, you know, family?
I'm pretty blessed. I never had a problem. It wasn't like, you need to. I mean, my dad towards the end was like, well, why don't you just get your degree and become a nurse? And I was like, Dad, I can't do science. Like, he was like a biology major, but now he's at home with a farm. He's from Greece, so he's like, you know, he's making his own meat and cooking his own eggs from his chickens and whatever. So I'm like, look at you, like, you've got a degree and what are you doing? And he would never really be that serious. I think he just, like, I think my mom was really supportive. She's always been supportive, but her mom was the one that sang. And, like, I remember when I started singing, like, certain family members would, like, message my mom and tell her that, like, they heard something that I'd sang at, like, a recital, and they started crying because it reminded them of, like, my grandma. She passed away when I was really young, I think 4 or 5. And so I think my mom really, like, has a strong connection with my singing, because it probably reminds her a lot of her mom. And I think she's a dreamer and doesn't, you know, like, I think she's never had a problem with me going after it, and she's always financially helped me, like, even now with, like, lessons and stuff, you know, and supporting my music. And my dad's always been supportive, but I think in the beginning it was like, well, you know, like, music looks very hard to do. It looks very impossible to make a career out of. And I think he was kind of like, well, you know, I think this is this. But once I was out of high school, I took a year off, and I started a band with a friend of mine for like a year, and I think that's when they were kind of like, okay, you know. But then I kind of went to school. But then once I ended that band, I started just kind of going full force on my own. I was like, okay, I started teaching, I started finding gigs, I'm writing my own music, I'm trying to get it recorded. And then my dad was like, okay, like, I see, you know. And he would come and see my gigs, and I think he was kind of like, okay, she's making a living off of it now, so I don't need to keep bombarding her. And now he's like, like, we have a small farm, and he sells pigs. He's like, I remember it was like a couple of years ago, he's like, guess who bought a pig for me? He said, Toto's son, you know, the song Africa? Yeah. Toto's son, I guess, bought a pig off of him, and he's like, I got his number, so we can call him, and he can hook you up with people and get you a record deal. I was like, Dad, doesn't work like that. And I remember he told all of my family at, I think it was Thanksgiving or Easter or something. And because I was like, Dad, like, stop, you're so dumb, like, I'm not going to text this guy that, you know what I mean? I know how people are in the professional zone. I feel like it doesn't really quite work like that. You don't go, hey, like, make my career come true. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of have to put in the work. You don't just, I guess you can hit up people, but I was just very... It would have
made a really interesting pig story.
It definitely very interesting, but I was not, like, about that. And I just had family members coming up, hey, have you heard of that song Africa? And I was like, please, like, my dad was telling everyone. So I think...
Has anybody not heard that song?
No, definitely not. But they're very supportive now. Sometimes my mom will be like, I think you need to get a degree, like, you know, and I'm like, well, Uh, I didn't. I mean, I started going, but I just can't see myself wasting hours on general ed. Like I know I'm bad at science.
Well, I think that music and the arts in general are just a field that, I always think about it because I did follow a career
Right.
in non-music. So I always bring up the same thing. It's like, I mean, if that point of argument kind of comes up, it's like, well, imagine like if you had a doctor or a lawyer and said like, hey, you should do music. You don't not in the sense of like financially do this instead of that, but you can't really get somebody to do art if they're not an art person. So I think the same applies on the opposite. If you have an artistic person, sometimes it's counterintuitive to go into a discipline that doesn't allow the artistic part of the mind, the creativeness to flow, because a lot of these other career paths are the way that they are because they require that kind of skill or that kind of mind processing ability, which is very different from the creative processing. But if you look at it from that perspective, you can't really just tell an accountant pick up a guitar and make a song.
Yeah.
Like maybe their brain just doesn't work that way, and the same applies the other way around. Like people who are creative thrive in the creative environment, and the ability to work with what you love is way different than just deciding a career path. And that sometimes kind of comes across where if the family, I bring it up or ask that question because sometimes artists do have a bit of a struggle in their core, in the family. It's like trying to detach from a non-musical family or non-artistic family is hard because they obviously well-intended but try to look for the well-being on the financial end, because people who don't take the artistic path are and society itself will make it so that the worry is, can you make a living, as opposed to are you happy doing what you do. And it's good to I like bringing that up because it helps other people who in the audience, or people that are aspiring to go into the music field, that some of these things do factor in. It's not just obviously the will to do things is very important, but it's not always just about how you feel and how you get there. I mean, like sometimes you have to detach from ideas or things that the family or friends might say, or sometimes they're the ones that impulse you. And everybody has a different path. So I always like to find out what that path was for an artist that is definitely music is their life, but sometimes those around them don't see it right away. At a certain point. So now that you got to the point where you're starting to develop a way of getting in front of an audience, how was that? How did you start getting into that? Because obviously you started a band, and whether you were playing in front of a public with the band or not, you decided to go solo. So how was your experience or journey trying to get shows, trying to play in front of people, and especially was this still in Temecula, or had you already moved to the greater LA part?
When I started playing shows?
Yeah, like
in Temecula.
So, how was that as either a struggle or not a struggle? How did you get by trying to play as an artist?
Right. Well, I think I started, like you said, I started with the band, but I was just singing anyway. And I remember people really liked it, and I really liked it. And so I started, I think at that point, really focusing on my guitar playing, because I'd played guitar for a while, but I never really practiced. I think I was really focused on my voice, and I guess I think I always felt like I wasn't capable. I don't know why. I think maybe people around me like made me feel that way, and I think just looking at myself as like a girl, I had never really thought I could like do that, Like I started listening to like Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix, and I was like, wow, I loved the guitar, but I just never ever tried playing it because I just automatically thought I can't do that, which is really lame of me. But so I think I had some chords under my belt, but I don't think I ever did really try and sit down and play through a song. But I wanted to play gigs. I think also I wanted to play in front of people, but I think a good part of it was the money too. I wanted to make money doing what I love, so that I could stop working at like a lame restaurant or something, I was like, what the heck, like I see these people going out, and people were telling me like, some people I knew like, oh, this girl, I think her name was Jill, played around and would make like $1,000 a week or something crazy, and I was like, there's no way from playing music, and I was like, I can sing. So I started picking up the guitar and trying to play, like, let me get 5 songs together, like just 5 songs, see how that goes. So I'd get songs together, and I started kind of building a repertoire on my guitar and voice, and kind of printing out sheets. And then I was so eager to do it, but I didn't know how to get in there, you know what I mean? So I just started asking people like, hey, like, do you know anyone that plays, do you play it? I'd start going to watch. And then one time a friend of mine named Willie, his mom was friends with this lady in town, and she plays piano at this Italian restaurant that I was trying to go sing at. But the hard part about getting gigs, even now that I have all this experience and I can clearly play 4 or 5 hours, whatever you want, and I can sit in the background and play, or I can sit more up front and entertain or play with a band, whatever, and I'm still struggling to get gigs here. Like, because you walk in somewhere, and you look all cute and you've got, your card and everything, and you'll walk up to someone and they'll just stare at you like, oh, we don't do that. Or, like they just don't want to deal with it, or and then you go in and you're dropping off your card and they're like, oh, like I just drove to Long Beach the other day, all the way to Long Beach, and, dumb me, I didn't call certain places to see if the person in charge of music was there, and I get in and they're like, oh, they're not here. And I'm like, oh, I just drove an hour to get here. And then they're like, yeah, like you could try like next Monday. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, only Monday. And then I go to the place next door. Oh, they're not here, but they're only here on Wednesdays and Thursdays. I'm like, well, are they here the other days? Yeah, but they won't talk to you. So I'm like, you're telling me I've got to drive here on this day to talk to this person, drive here to talk to this person. And I'm like, I'm tired of emailing because people don't respond, So I was kind of getting a bit of that in Temecula when I was starting. And then I was getting, I think a lot of people, at least for me, I feel like people at first don't really think I'm capable. Like even people like around me, and they'll be like, well, you gotta be really good. Like you gotta be able to do this. And I'm thinking like, okay, I don't need you to tell me what I need to do. Like I want to do it. So are you gonna help me, or are you gonna like just discourage me, Mm-hmm. And so I was like dealing with a lot of that, but I was really fighting against it because I was like, no, I feel that I could do this, So I went to this piano bar that I was trying to play at, but they were just giving me a number of some guy who organizes the music, but he would never get back to me. And I was like, what is this? It's just Marietta. Like, come on, man, I live around the corner. Like, couldn't get a hang of it. So I go there, she's playing, and she's like, why don't you come up here and sing one? So I was like, yeah. So I go up there and I sing a few with her, and we had like a great time and everyone was loving it. And so she's like, all right, well, we've got this band and our singer just left to be a flight attendant. And she's like, would you like to start singing with us? And I was like, are you kidding me? So then, boom, I just jumped right on. We had a rehearsal. Really cool, like, group of older people that were already, like, in the wineries. So we were playing, like, Italian restaurants. We were playing South Coast Winery a few times and some other places. And that was where I was like, okay, I can sing 3 hours. Because we were singing, like, Chain of Fools, like, these crazy belting songs. And I mean, I was having to like work, we were singing sometimes 9 p.m. till 12, and then I'd wake up the next morning and go sing at church. And I was like, whew. So I think it really taught me like stamina and gave me like okay, you can do this. So that's when I was like, all right, I can do this on my own, because I would be playing like 3-4 hour gigs and make like $75, which for some people is a lot. But when you're taxing your voice like that, and like working really hard, it's not a lot, because once I started picking up my guitar and I just carried it around to different venues, and some of them were like, all right, play me a song, you play them a song, which I think is the best way if you're looking for gigs. Just go shove it in their face like, hi, can I play you a song? Because then they're like, well, all right, play me 30 seconds. But then if you charm them right there, because I think social media and all that's really cool, but you can't really get that like feeling with a person. But if you're right there, and they see you and they're like, wow, you know what? Then they have a memory of you and they will call you. And then, you know, even if they don't have an open position, maybe a month down the line, so-and-so's pregnant, she can't sing anymore, because that happened to me. They are like, well, let's call this girl. You know, we saw her. You know, I remember her coming in. She's very sweet. She's hardworking. And then they'll call you. So I was just going around, and I started getting a few gigs, which were paying, you know, way more than that 75. Even though it's really fun to sing with the band, sometimes it's good to get money. So then I started doing that, and then I started meeting some people my age playing around, and this like really sweet girl. She was like, why don't you, like, you know, she's like, invited me to her gig, and I think she was kind of standoffish at first, but then I showed up and she's like, oh, wow. So I think it's good to make like connections, even if you don't
get to
even
play
if
at
you
the moment.
struggle. No, I'm saying like, because I've met some people that are very difficult to become friends with, and I've met some people that are very standoffish, and I feel like kind of like maybe they don't like me, but I think it's really important to push into your community, because I was like, okay, I think, you know, I didn't think she really liked me, and she's like, well, I have a show tomorrow, like if you want to go. So I went, you know, and I brought friends, and she was like, wow, you came out, you know. And then once she found out that she had like a friend of me, she's like, hey, come up right now. Like it was at her gig. She's like, play a song. And I was like, okay. She's like, yeah, let me tell them to come watch you so you can get a gig here. And I was like, okay. So then I played one song, and boom, I had a standing gig there. Like ended up playing like 2-3 times a month at like this really nice steakhouse with great tips, you know. And then she came down to my gig, and I had her play a song, and she started getting gigs there. So we started connecting, and she'd be like, hey, I can't play this gig, but they really need someone, could you play? I'm going to send them your information. Boom. So like if I didn't force myself into that connection because maybe I thought she didn't like me or she was different from me, then I would never have gotten all that. So I think it's like a collection of things, but that's basically how I got into it. Was just, you really have to want it, and you have to just try every way, because it's like getting a job. Like if you go and drop your application off somewhere, they're gonna forget about you, you know. And it's annoying to think like, well, I have to go and bug, but yeah, you kind of have to like go in, and they'll see that you really want it, you know. And if you really want it, you will find a way, you know. I mean, sometimes you won't. There was this one bar, and I would go in there all the time. I knew if I played there, all my friends would come, and it was a perfect venue. And it was just in Old Town Temecula, and I already played everywhere. And I kept going into that guy, and I think maybe I had too much of an attitude, because I would be like, hey, man, remember I came in? And he's like, oh, yeah, like, I don't know, like, we'll let you know. And I was like, nah, why? Like, I was like, can't I just play? And he's like, I don't know. And then turned out 2 of my friends had standing gigs there, and they needed a singer, so I was coming in to sing. And I was like, well, would you look at that? Now I'm coming in, and it wasn't even through you, and guess what? You can't do anything. But then we got double booked, and I couldn't go. And I was like, oh my God. And so I went in again, and I was like, hey, like, I was gonna come sing here. And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, he's like, we want you to sing. And then my other friend's band was playing there. So that was with the other guy. And then my friend's band had a standing gig, and they love when I come sing with them. So they're like, come on, please come sing. So I was like, fine. So I went up and sang. Everybody in there loved it, you know, and we're having the greatest time. So then I catch the guy, the manager, walking through. And I said, hey, and he's like, hey, like, look, just send me your availability on an email. And I'm like, oh yeah, now you want me. But then he was just, you know, he never got back to me. And then I would just go to that bar just to be there, and he would come up like, hey, how you doing? And I'm just like, hey, like, I don't really care about you, dude. Like, come on. So sometimes you have like a real struggle, but then you have like 7 other places that love having you and want you there every week. So it's worth it, I think, you know, to just like push for it. I don't know.
And at this time, were you, or did you start diving into, you know, writing your own songs and try to create your own music? Or at this stage, are you still doing covers and just finding pieces of music that your voice really accommodates to, and then, you know, play those?
I think it was a mixture. When I was in the band, I was with this guy, and he was playing all the guitar parts, and I was writing the melodies and oftentimes the lyrics too. But I think that was before I really started playing, so I was kind of like, I had got really, it was like an unhealthy kind of situation in that band, so I needed to get out of it, but I didn't because I thought, well, I can't do this on my own. You know, the only way I'm going to be able to write songs is if I'm playing with this person who writes like this. So I think I felt like I couldn't, but but then I did write one on piano that I liked, so I was like, okay, maybe I can. And then once I started practicing more with the guitar, I wrote one that I still really like and would like to do something with. But then, yeah, I guess I started writing. I don't really know. I think, I mean, I was focusing on covers, but I would make more like meaningful stuff on my own because like, I think my stuff can be a bit more like depressing, not depressing, more melancholy. It's very melancholy and very like, because I write from like I think a very, not dark place, but that's where I really feel all my emotions is in all that kind of sad stuff and like real stuff of life, not in the frou-frou like whatever happy stuff. So I would be doing that because I really needed to get it out emotionally, but I would never play it out because I was like, I just don't, like, I wouldn't want to bring down the mood, you know, like I'm trying to be back on music. Yeah. So I think playing covers really got me more like into the more upbeat, like I like to play like Stevie Wonder and like some Carole King and like, you know, some really like happy stuff. So I think I was kind of writing but not really doing anything with it or thinking anything of it until maybe like a couple years like after gigging, or like a year or so of gigging, then I started really like doing that. And then I started taking guitar lessons from some friends, like some actual like in-depth ones, because I'd be writing, but I wouldn't want to write with the knowledge I had because I was like, well, I don't really like these chords. They're not portraying what I feel. Yeah. So I started experimenting and finding like different voicings and different chords. And then my friends were helping me, and that's when I really started writing because I think I had all the ideas, but I just didn't know guitar-wise what to do. And I was also very protective of my songs, and I didn't want to just sit down with a guitarist and allow them to have their say, which sounds kind of like maybe selfish, but I felt like I knew the kinds of chords and melodies that I want, and I don't want to find them with someone else. I want to find them. So I think my writing was taking like a while, but because I wanted to grow it, I wanted to grow that strength of the guitar playing on my own so that I could be fully capable without anyone else doing it.
And I was actually intending to ask if you felt like once you had picked up the guitar that your musical landscape and or composition change, because sometimes for composers, like whether it's your voice or an instrument, adding a second instrument or a second melody, just whether it opens up the palette or it just changes the direction of where the original idea was going. So I was interested in asking if you felt like that happened once you picked up the guitar, or if, from what you commented, I think that you had the idea, you just couldn't convert it to the sonic emotion within the instrument. So do you feel like you just picked up the guitar and made it happen the way that it was intended, or once you picked up the guitar, it took on a different path, whether you were okay with that path or not?
I think maybe a little bit of both. I think because when I write, I don't pre-write, like I don't go, okay, here's the lyrics and the melody. I definitely am really moved by, like, even when I listen to music, I'm not like a lyrics first person. I very am like, wow, I really feel that chord, I feel that progression, or I whatever. So I didn't really even know what I was thinking of, but I knew that it wasn't what I did. Like, yeah, when I picked up the guitar, I could find some really nice chords that I liked. And I think once I found that chord, the melodies that were just in there, even though I didn't know what they were, came out because I think they needed to hear that chord. Mm-hmm. And then that like really struck a feeling in me. Even now, like, because I'd started with that and I had this like really nice progression, but then I wrote this song, I really liked it, but then I got stuck because I didn't have a full full catalog. I didn't have a full catalog of chords that I could be like, okay, I know this one will sound like, you know what I mean? So I was just kind of like putting my fingers places and being like, well, I really like that. I don't know what that is, but I like that. And then if I slide it up, I can get this. And if I play over here, I've got the, so I was literally just putting my fingers and experimenting until I found like the sound I wanted and if it was in the right key. And then from then on, I would, I'd be like, okay, well, I found this shape. It's really cool. Don't know what it is, but I know it has this kind of tone. So if I started writing another song in another key, I would just take that shape, obviously, and put it into the key. And so, but I would hit walls. Even now, I sometimes hit like walls where I'm like, okay, I'm playing all these chords, I'm in the key, but it's not what I want. It's not what I want. And that's why I started going to school and taking lessons. Because I was like, okay, I need to open that even more because I'll have like a song that goes somewhere and then I take it somewhere that sounds good, but I don't want it to go there. I want it to go somewhere else and I just don't have the freedom. So I think I'm constantly trying to grow that. Mm-hmm. And then I will get to a place where I like write a song and I'm like, wow, that was awesome. And I used those chords and whatever. But then I'm like, okay, now I need to write another one. And then I will start it. And, I've got a lot that are like, half finished or like part, and they just need a little something. But then I have like a nice group of guitar player friends and they're like amazing guys, like personality and guitar, and they're always just like, they'll Skype me whenever, they'll call me whenever, they'll sit down and have a lesson with me, and it's so cool because I can be like, hey, I've got this song, like, could you listen to it? Yeah, send it over. And I send it over, and then they're like, okay, you could try this voicing, or like, you could move this note here, or like, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, wow, like, that totally makes sense, but me being stuck over here wouldn't have really quite done that. So I think I'm a lot further than being back there where I'm just like, I guess this works.
Struggling with your own limitations, I guess.
Yeah, which sucks because I feel like vocally, I don't think I'm really that limited anymore. I think I've really worked on it and really opened it up. It's not perfect, and I've got a lot of places I'd like to take my voice that they haven't gone yet, Mm-hmm. But I think I can really get what I want out. So it's like I can get that out, but then the guitar is like, it's like, wait for me, it's like trying to catch up, and I'm like, well, hurry up now, because I'm all the way over here, like, come on, but it just like, it's a lot of work, I think. For me, guitar has been kind of, there's been a learning curve, I'd say.
Do you like, because you mentioned you composed a couple things with piano, do you like to compose using other instruments other than the guitar, or do you want the end product to be voice and guitar? Does that question make sense? Like, are you trying to incorporate other instrumentation melodies, or do you prefer having it being in that realm of voice and guitar? Do you even try with other instruments, or are you just focused on making sure that the sound is vocal and guitar?
Wow. I think I'm trying to focus right now on guitar. I really was like, okay, if I want to get better at this, I can't be like, oh, I gotta practice piano, I gotta practice guitar, I gotta do this, I just kind of had to like minimalize it, because I was playing piano for a bit. And I started taking lessons. I really like that neo-soul R&B piano and like gospel piano. Like I love those like movements. So my friend's brother was teaching me. But then I was really dividing my time. And then I realized that, I don't know, I think I just chose guitar and I liked guitar a bit more. So I kind of put the piano at rest for a while. And I was writing on the piano, and I liked it, actually. I've got a couple that I want to do something with, mm-hmm. that I might. But I really was like, okay, I'm going to focus on the guitar. So I stopped playing the piano for a good while. And now when I sit down, like I will occasionally sit down and try and write. And it's just like, it's not the same, I think, because I'm now really limited on the piano. And I think the main thing with my songwriting is I want the freedom. So I've thought about it. I think right now for this first album or whatever I'm going to try and do, I'm going to stick with the guitar, and I may resurrect the 2 piano songs that I had or something, mm-hmm. if I feel they're like worth something. But as far as like being as artistic like as I want to be, I'd have to stay with the guitar because I just sit at the piano and I get stuck, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I've thought about it though, like writing with other instruments. I think it will come. I think for this first one, I really want it to be like raw and very like organically made and very like true to how I'm feeling. And I've just been able to just sit at the guitar and write versus anything else. But I think in time, I'd like to sit down and like maybe work with like a drummer first and start a song with drums or start a song with blah blah. But I've already come far enough to where I have a good amount of songs that I've already written.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm not opposed to it, but I think right now I don't really feel the need to like start with another instrument. Although I think it makes for some really cool songs.
As a composer, have there been moments, or are there moments, whether you're looking for them or not, that you hear something else, or in your case, because you've done a lot of covers, that you're covering a song, whether it's playing it live or recording something, and then because of that, whether you're doing an interpretation of a song that you're covering, or you're listening to something that it strikes a chord in you and go like, oh, there's that, or it just gives you kind of like a eureka moment in your creative process. Or as a composer, do you really, I don't want to say that you're stubborn enough not to let anything come in or seep through, but do you safeguard what you already have envisioned in your mind to then materialize it?
Like, do I basically like write a song and then never let it change? Is that what you're saying? Or
yeah, like when you come up with a concept for a song that you're trying to write and then build a melody around it, is it typically going to be what you've already envisioned, or as you're writing and as a composer, you suddenly hear something, or maybe when you're singing a song, somebody else's song, you feel something in there that like, oh, that gives me something I can apply over here, not in the sense of like copying it, but like opening up ideas and or influences that otherwise you wouldn't have had writing on your own.
Yeah, I think usually when if I'm learning a new song or something, sometimes I'll discover a new chord, and I like to take that and I take that over into my writing. Mm-hmm. Like when I first learned a minor 9, I was like, wow, this is an awesome chord. And so now I have a couple songs with minor 9 chords in them. But as far as like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think really when I'm playing that happens, but I do listen to a lot of music. Like I think, and I'm all over the map, So now that I'm starting to like demo some stuff and hopefully record, I get ideas from that, and I'd like to imply them in the future, but I'll usually just put them on a playlist and be like, okay, I really liked the editing on like the drums here, or I really loved this like horn section. Like there's a Donny Hathaway song. Do you ever listen to Donny Hathaway?
I don't think I have.
Okay, he's like a classic. But anyways, he's got this song called Giving Up, and I listened to it the first time and I was like, wow. And then at the ending, there's like this horn part, and I mean, it blew my mind, like the chords that were being made and like the way that the horns were like swelling. I was like, wow. So I've kept things and like little moments I felt from songs and want to apply them. But when I write, I kind of just sit there and just whatever comes out like will come out. Mm-hmm. And I don't really think like, oh, I should do this to it. So, but then again, a lot of them are in their beginning stages. So I don't know if I really do that like quite like that.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you're somebody who is composing songs, whether you're doing it through an instrument or through vocals or an arrangement. Mm-hmm. Sometimes those influences actually, not that they take over or take control over what your creative process is, but it just impulses new things that people try. I've also met people that are like, this is my art form, and everything outside of that is just out there.
Yeah.
But my way of writing music is like my way. Like I don't care if the trend right now is to do this or that, or if this really sounded like really cool. I'm not pursuing that. I'm just trying to do my own thing. And sometimes that's a risk, and you're either limited into what you can actually do or produce.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's why, like, for right now, I haven't really dove much in. I mean, a little bit, but all I have right now are, like, with my demos is me and the electric guitar, which I would say I'm not, like, married to it. I'd say the reason I have that underneath there is because I would like to play and sing them, But I've got a lot of guys that I'm going to have throw some stuff on top with guitar, and then I've got a drummer and a bass player. And I think, like, after that, I think you're right. You could add instruments, and it could really give to the song, or it could really take away. So I'm pretty, like, I'm going to do my research as far as listening and see, like, what I want to add. Like, there's a few that we might have some Rhodes on. And, I mean, even in the past, there's been times where we had a song and we added Rhodes, I think, or organ. We added organ, and we would listen to it. It was cool, but it just took away from the song, so we just took it out,
Yeah.
So I think that's totally. I think you definitely have to have an ear if you want to be, like, your own producer, or at least co-producing your stuff. Because, I mean, if you're just like, throw it on there, I love saxophone, and it's like, that does not need saxophone,
it's not you anymore,
not you, and it's also a bad song, because, like, good producers know when to add something and when to keep it out, like, you could really, I mean, now there's the freedom to just add everything if you want. I mean, you've got MIDI and you've got, like, these synths, and you can just program any sound you want, so you could really, like, sky's the limit. You could have a whole orchestra or whatever. But if the song isn't gonna call for that, then don't throw it in there, because now people could turn your song on and really be mesmerized and be like, wow, this is amazing, it's really moving me. Or they could turn it on and be like, next, So it's really important, I think, to really listen and hear, like, what does a song want, Like, what is a song calling for? And I think it could be hard when you're, like, a vocalist, but I think I am a vocalist at first, but I definitely also am. I think I can hear from a guitarist perspective, and I really, like, pay attention to, like, drums and bass and tracks, and, like, I love that stuff, So I think if as long as you're well-rounded and really do your listening, and really study, like, the legends, and people who are, like, good producers and whatnot, you can get a feel and kind of learn, like, okay,
what works, what doesn't.
Yeah.
Or at least what works with your material and what.
Yeah, and you can hear artists that are maybe something that you're coming from, and kind of get an idea, like, do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, I'm not gonna go listen to Metallica for inspiration on how I want. But that being said, I could still listen to a Metallica record and pull out little things that I like that I could apply to my music. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But so I guess it just depends. I don't know. You kind of have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah. No, absolutely. When I guess moving to LA, right? How does that happen in your life? Was it influenced by the drive or need to be in a place that has a little bit more going on in the musical world? Was it a different circumstance that brought you here, or was the intention to really be around the musical life that goes around in LA? Because obviously,
right,
this is a place that has a lot of music. It thrives on music. I think it's a very important place in the world, even though maybe it's not like thinking about like Nashville or something like that, where it's like a growth spurt of artists. I think music is produced here. There's a lot of impulse for the music community. So when you move out here, is that intended? Is it surrounding other circumstances, or how do you get down to LA?
I think it was a combination. I wanted to move here for a while. I'm not like a small town girl, so I was like, get me out of here. But I didn't have enough money yet. I mean, I had some friends who straight up just moved, but they were really struggling, and they were working so hard to pay their rent that they didn't even have time to do what they love, and they ended up moving back, you know. So I really felt the need to just stay in place. I felt like, I don't know, I would pray about it a lot, and I felt like God had a plan for me in my town, but I also felt that He knew my dream to go to LA. So I never worried that it would happen. I just knew it wasn't the right time. So I was saving for a while, and I just keep saving and working hard over there. And then I just remember I always wanted to go to school, specifically music school, but I mean, I'm not going to pay $60,000 a year for that kind of a degree. Do you know what I mean? Like, some of the ones that I really wanted to go to are just insane. And then, you know, like, I was looking at Berkeley, way too much money, and it's all the way in Boston, you know what I mean? So I just kind of was like, you know, I'm not going to be able to. So I just kept saving, and then a guitar friend of mine who was also teaching me told me about Fullerton College and the jazz program there, and I was like, there's a jazz guitar program, like, in the vicinity of where I live? Like, are you serious? No one told me this, you know? Mm-hmm. So then I started looking into that, and then I was like, okay, I have savings. And then I'd been wanting to go to LA because you're totally right. Like, it's like a hub, even if it's not the same as Nashville, but whatever, you know what I mean? Like, there's still like a lot that goes on there, and there's a lot more that goes on than in a small town, you know? So I have an uncle and an aunt who live out in Palos Verdes, and they would always be like, you can come live with us, like, and I'd be like, I want to, but, you know, I never did. And then so I applied for the school, but Fullerton was like an hour from me. It's still like 45 from their house, but, you know, that makes a difference. Exactly. And like, I remember I commuted one day from Marietta to Fullerton, and it took me an hour and a half when it normally takes like under 50 minutes, and I was late to class. And then this way, at least in the morning, there's a bit of traffic, but you're still under an hour. I know like an hour and a half don't sound like a big deal, but they are. Like, even if you're just under the hour, it just flies by. But man, when it passes an hour, anyway. So I called my aunt and uncle, and I was like, hey, you know, I know, like, before, like you said, I could, like, live with you guys. Do you think, you know, I'm going to go to school and I want to be closer to LA? And my aunt's like, yeah, come. Like, she's the greatest. So I just moved, I guess. And I mean, I felt like there was no, like, I just felt like it was like a gift, you know, and I felt like it was God saying, this is time, like, you know, you need to go, like, you've done a lot of work here. And on top of that, I've had all this savings. Like, I mean, I'm really good at saving, and I saved a good amount, and now I don't even have to fork it out to rent. I can keep saving, you know, because they're letting me stay with them. So it was kind of just like you gotta go, you know. So I went, and then went to school, and I feel like it was a bit of a slow beginning with music because I was going to school all the time and like making that commute, and then I was working and trying to do my music. So I think now in the summer, I've really been just like, okay, I have more free time now. So I've just been taking my business card and going, you know, like, I'll spend a day in Long Beach just going around with my guitar and business card, and then I'll spend a day in like Redondo Beach area. And I've already got a couple, which is nice, and some people who are gonna like email me, and then, you know, spend a day in Anaheim and went around there. So I think it's been awesome because I'm right in like a nice spot where I'm not like just in LA. I'm like 30, 40 minutes from LA, but I'm also 20 minutes from Long Beach, and then I'm also 45 minutes from Anaheim. So it's like now, instead of just playing in one area, I can get people here, get people here, get people here. Because I'm all about, like, you got to make like a community, and I want people who like my music. I want them to be my friends, you know. I don't just want blind people on like Instagram who are like, oh yeah, even though I think Instagram followers are cool, and I think you can have really real ones who really feel like, I mean, I follow some people that I've never met, and I'm like, wow, I love their stuff, you know what I mean? But I think it's so cool to have like a real connection, because I think people get to know you, and they see you, and then they want to support you even more, and they're like, oh, she's playing here, you know, we could drive 30 minutes. Like, I played this gig in Temecula, and this lady, her niece is from Long Beach, and she was out, and then she was from Temecula, and they found out I'm playing in Manhattan Beach. And the younger girl in Long Beach, she's like, I'll be there. Me and my husband will be there. And then the lady from Temecula, she's like, oh, I'm coming out. And I'm like, you're going to drive from Temecula? And she's like, oh, yeah, girl, I will. And I was like, no way. So it's like, you can have those kind of moments where people will literally drive over an hour to see you. Like, that's nuts, you know? But, like, I think that's, like, worth, like, the hard work and stuff. So I think LA's, I mean, it's had a lot more opportunity, and the people around you. Like, I think when you're in a small town, I've got a lot of friends who are getting married or having kids, and that's cool, you know, if that's like what you want to do. But I think for someone who is really trying to get all these artistic goals and like really working hard to be like around that kind of more mellow, like more different, it's just a different lifestyle. So it was very like, I was hustling, but no one was hustling around me. And I really thrive off that push of being like, wow, she's doing that, shoot, I gotta go, you know? And like, and I was trying to do that best I could, but it's like, I felt a little bit like I was being brought down in that sort of way. And now, like, I'm working with people in my job or meeting people that are like, oh yeah, like, I'm working, but I'm trying to make my rap album. And like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, but I want to open this, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing this. And they're like, you know, it's like very lively and very like, I have a dream and I can pursue it, you know? And that's like, wow. And then you're like, I want to do that, you know? So it's just constant encouragement and like people around you who are kind of doing the same thing as you. So I think it's a great place to be if you want to do like any sort of art or, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, being around that crowd is gonna definitely impulse you or allow you to kind of match up that level of energy and trying to do things as opposed to, like you were saying, maybe a little more passive way or lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know? And definitely when you're, that's my next question is, I mean, has it been more of a struggle or less of a struggle now that you're more capable, more connected? How do you feel that this stage right now of your musical production?
Well, I'd say since I moved, it's way less of a struggle. Like, and I always knew that I had this feeling that if I just get out of Marietta, if I just get out of here, there's going to be opportunities. Because I'd be there and I'd be like trying to even just get a band together for a gig. And it was like, there was no good bass players, or if there were, they were busy, or there was just no drummers, or there was no people really serious. Or I would try and get people to record my stuff, and it was just like, oh, like, I don't know, I don't really have time, or like, you know, it just wasn't happening. So I was like, I know if I move, like, I'll meet people. I know. And now that I've moved and gone to school, you know, I met this guy at my school, and he's helping me record for like $20 an hour because he knows me from school. And it's like, you don't find that price anywhere, you know, for like, I mean, it's really quality too. I mean, I'm just looking at them as demos, but even I'm thinking I could use them for like big scale. So it's like, I met him, and then I met all these people at school that want to play with me, you know, like this really cool bass player. And then now that I'm in this area, it's crazy how like when you're around people, all of a sudden they start hitting you up. It's like, hey, you guys, I would have drove out to Long Beach to hang out and see your show, even though I'm this far, but it's like I wasn't really invited until now. It's like, oh, Anastasia's only like 15 minutes away, like let's call her up, you know. And then I got a friend, like it's just like everyone around here is like they're out here to play music, so they're gonna play music. They're not back in a small town being like, well, you know, I gotta do this and I gotta do this. They're like, yeah, heck yeah, I'm trying to fill my schedule with music, you know what I mean? Because that's what I'm doing. So it's like now I've got like 3 or something bass players, and I've got like a plethora of like drummers, and I've got these people that want to play. And then I'm like, this guy's recording me, and he's introducing me to the guy that books over at places that he plays at, because, you know, he's like, oh, you sing well, you play gigs, let me hook you up with this guy. And then I'm meeting this person because I'm out at their show, because I'm able to drive there and get home in a decent amount of time. So, you know, you meet people, and then they get to know you, and they're like, oh, like, let me tell you about this person that can help you do this. And then now I've got like a few people in mind that I want to like produce my album. And now, you know, and I think people take you more seriously, and they're like, oh, you're out in LA, which is like kind of dumb, because it's like, you could have took me seriously before. But it's a thing, like they find out and they're like, oh, like you're playing here, you're doing this, and then they take you more seriously. So you just have to do it. So I think, yeah, it's been way easier, like as far as finding people to work with and like people who like my music and places to play original music, because back home it was like there was no venues. It was basically if you want to play, you play gigs, but if you play gigs, you're not playing your originals because people are enjoying their dinner and they don't want to hear your original. They want to hear you play like the Eagles or something, you know? So you play that and whatever. And sometimes they didn't even care. Like, I mean, I'd play for people even like now, and it's like sometimes it's really taxing at times because you're playing and no one claps. And I'm thinking like, okay, and for an artist, you kind of need that like, I mean, it doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, worship you, you're amazing. No way, but like, man, you couldn't even like clap 2 times. like you guys just did not even acknowledge that I'm here. And like, it doesn't even have to be every song, but sometimes it's like not at all, you know? And then you just kind of feel like shit. You're just kind of like, well, dang, like, do I suck, you know? Because I think, especially in this kind of career, you're just going for it, and you really kind of need that encouragement from people around you. And that's why I like have people around me that I really value their opinion, and they're very good players and whatever, and I'm occasionally just like, hey, like, do you like this song? Like, how's my voice sound? Like, how's this sound? Because I want to make sure, because there's people out there that are trying to do it and they're working very hard, and like some of them just aren't. I mean, I don't want to say they're not good, but sometimes they don't have maybe like certain like things, and like people aren't telling them, you know. And I just am the kind of person that like, if I want to do something, I want to at least know that I have the capability, and it doesn't have to be perfect capability. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But in this kind of like an industry, which is like not even really, it's just like going really downhill. Like I think like there's really no money in it anymore, and everyone I talk to is like, well, like, you know, it's not really going anywhere good. It's going downhill. Like, you're not going to get any money from this and this. Like, and I'm just like, okay. But, I mean, you do it for the love of it, not for the money,
right?
I think.
Now that you're at this stage, what are the new difficulties that adversity that you're running into now as a more established artist? You know, I like to ask this because I think a lot of people make it to a certain point, and because they don't see that immediate progress, it can become discouraging. My question is, now that you're at this stage, mm-hmm. what do you find now to be a new challenge? You know, not necessarily something that will put you down, but a new challenge that now you have to, okay, how do I get past this mountain? You know?
Yeah. Maybe sometimes being taken seriously by like other like people that I would be trying to like have a community with, you know. Like I do see, I mean, there's like this big community and like on Instagram and whatnot, but I feel like it's very tight knit, and I feel like people can be a bit cliquey in LA, and they can be sometimes a bit like, oh, like, who are you, you know? And so I'm like, I'm not that kind of person. Like, I don't care if you're like the worst person in the world or the best person in the world. I'm gonna treat you the same, because I love people, and I would never, you know, do that to anyone. But then I'm coming in, you know, and like trying to meet people, and sometimes they treat me like, oh, like, who are you, you know? Mm-hmm. But then here I am, and I'm like, well, hey, like, I can do what you're doing, you know what I mean? Like, I play gigs too. Like, maybe I'm not playing them in your area yet, or maybe like, yeah, it's very much like, I've seen this a lot, but I was like, well, no, I don't know if it'd be like that. But then I've experienced it a tiny bit, but I have, where like in like the LA kind of culture, it's very like, oh, like, what can you do for me, you know? Because if oh, you're a producer. Oh, hey, do you want to go out and get lunch? Like, you know what I mean? Like, blah, 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 whatever. But then, like, if there's nothing that you can really readily show, you know, it's very like, it's like they don't have time for you. And so I've really hated that kind of feeling, because I don't know, but I feel like it kind of discourages you, especially when like that's the niche of people doing things, and you can't seem to like become friends, even though, you know, like you would probably get along, you know, and you're wanting to do the same kind of thing. So it's like, but then maybe that's just me perceiving it wrong. I don't really know.
Do you find it to be a status kind of a thing, or more of a
I'd say a status
like a
type
catalog
thing.
kind of
It's
thing?
like, oh, I've done this, 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 and this. What about you? You know, it's like, oh, you know, you can't sit with us kind of thing. But I mean, some of them are some people that I've met are really kind and really whatever. And I think sometimes you really just can't, it's just like any friend group, you know, if you have you and your 5 guys, you guys are tight knit, and like if some dude wants to hang out, you're kind of like, I don't know, but then after a while you get to know him and you're like, all right, man, and then he becomes a part of your group, and it's extending, right?
Yeah.
But at first you're very like, well, this is like our group of dudes, you know, or like this, so I feel like it's like, well, this is our group of whatever, and we're like comfortable in this group, and like I'm just not that kind of a person. Like, if I see someone hanging out by themselves, like, I invite every sort of person to, like, my parties. I just love different personalities, and I love including people, but not everyone's like that, and doesn't mean they're, like, a bad person. It just means that, you know, I had to kind of work out how to get in there a bit more, but it kind of sucks because I'm out here and I'm not right in LA, so I do have to make that drive. But I do want to make friends, and I want to make those connections, but like genuine connections, not
Right.
just, and I'm finding it a bit hard, and it's like a big place, you know, and so you're just kind of like, So I think that, and then like finding out how to play my original music in places in LA, because like I said, it's a tight-knit community, so it's like, oh, I know blah, 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 and she's opening up at Hotel Cafe, and she needs 2 more people on her bill, so she's going to call me, but I don't know so-and-so who has that kind of thing, so I'm just over here wanting to play my music, but I'm also not in the position to be like, hi, I want to play at Hotel Cafe, and I can assure you that 200 people will come and watch me, because I'm still new to the area,
Yeah.
so I'm trying to grow. But then I don't know, like, they're not really allowing you to grow in a sense. Like, I guess you have to grow small. So I'm just driving out there, and like my friend referred me to like a coffee shop that has music. It doesn't pay, which is fine. But who knows, maybe 5 people will walk in and get some sort of coffee and like my music, and then maybe they'll follow my Instagram and eventually come out to another show. So I guess having to go from like playing a ton and like feeling ready to play venues like Hotel Cafe, like, you know, I've been going to shows and these people are awesome, and I'm also finding like, wait, I'm actually capable. Like before it was very like, wow, that's really cool, I could never imagine doing that, and now I'm like sitting there and I'm getting antsy and I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, like I could play my, like, I know it's like ready, you know, but it's like, it's kind of like, well, hold down, because you're a small fish right now, and you've got to build it up slow. So it's just like having to really be like I guess humble, and like being like, okay, like it doesn't matter, you know. Some people are like, oh, you don't need to be playing like open mics, like they make these things sound like they're not like worth anything
Or important.
but they are, yeah, but they like small gigs are, and but then it's like, if you're only playing small gigs and whatever, then no one's really taking you seriously, but you're just trying to like join in, you know. So it's like, I don't know, it's very like interesting, but I'm just like whatever, so I'm like nose down and like, I'm just gonna work. Yeah.
How do you, I mean, aside from trying to hit venues and play, which is obviously one of the more important parts for an artist, is to get out there and play your music.
Yeah.
What are some of the methods or things that you have been doing over the last few, you know, months or years? I guess more months, but how do you try to get your material out there, aside from trying to find opportunities to play?
Well, I've made like a couple YouTube videos of covers, but I haven't really put material out there, because like original material, because I'm really like, I have really high standards for it. I want it to sound really good, and I'm not just gonna put out anything, you know, because like everybody nowadays is putting out Like, you can go in your bedroom and make an EP in like a couple weeks and put it out. And some people do that and it's super killer. But some people do it and they kind of half-ass it a little bit and then they put it out. And it's like you can kind of hear that could have took, like you could have put a little more love into it and a little more time. But then I think sometimes that I'm too, like, crazy about it.
Or
I just
too
like
critical of your work?
Well, not critical, but I don't know, I just have high standards. Like I really like revere like the great people that I listen to and their records, and I'm like, I want my record to sound like that. I don't want to put just anything out, especially because that could be your only chance of somebody seeing you and being like, wow, you're really good, do you have any stuff anywhere? And you're like, yeah, like I've got an EP on Spotify. And then they click on it, and if they're like, oh, this isn't, it didn't strike me, they're not going to look at you again. Do you know what I mean? You have like one chance. So I'm just kind of like saving. I might do like a Kickstarter or something, and I talked to someone about recording like an album. But I think I want to build my following by playing all these shows, so that way when I do release something, like there's people there to listen to it. Yeah, otherwise I release it to like my, I don't know, under 2,000 followers. Who's gonna, like, I would just like hate to like put a lot of effort into something and nobody really listened to it just because they didn't even know about it, So I don't know, I feel like that's the way I want to go right now. But I'm still working on it. I don't know. A lot of people that I listen to, like, they didn't really make it or anything until they were like 27 or something. And I'm 23, so it's like I've got time and I've got a lot to learn. So I'm okay being in the process. And I think the process is like a beautiful thing. I think you have a lot to learn, and I definitely have like a lot to learn before I think I'm just going to throw out some expert album or something,
No, definitely. I mean, I think,
so, I don't know,
especially because I find it really interesting when I hear the perception of people referring to artists and thinking that it's just like this magical, like, boom, I just did something and then I'm huge. Being in the music industry, you kind of get a sense of what it really is. Like, it's not just, I mean, there are going to be a few stories or anecdotes of like, I just posted something on YouTube and somebody heard it and then they brought me in and then I was like, that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
But that's not commonplace. Most artists do have to struggle. Most artists have gone through years of I don't want to put it in the sense of like, oh, it's all doom and gloom and it's a struggle and you don't really make it until you make it, and that's not true either. But there's a process to it, and if anything, I enjoy talking to people that are in that process because it kind of showcases what it is, what the reality of getting into the music business is, as opposed to just the story of like, yeah, I just posted something and boom, like I'm playing at the MTV Music Award show or whatever it is. That's not the typical path that somebody takes. There are some common threads. You are going to move to the other, big place of your place of origin isn't going to, help you thrive. Yeah. You will need to build that following. You will need to play those open mics.
Yeah.
And that is part of it. But the stories of success, more than not, and especially now, I don't mean to take too much time diving into that, but the music industry is different. Like before, it was really like, get in front of a producer, playing a gig at some open mic or maybe just, a bar, that a scout is there looking for new talent, right, because they want that record deal. And that's how artists used to get discovered. And that, I think, right now is still in the back of people's mind. But the music industry has moved so far from that type of way of getting artists out. Like we hear that because our favorite bands that, are now legends, that's what happened to them, but that's not how it works right now. Like now you literally can post anything and make it seem like it's an album when it's really not, and it's good and bad for a lot of reasons. It's good because a lot of people do get discovered that way, and maybe that story does come true, but it also allows for a lot of not so good material to filter in with
And
the
then
better
but
material.
then it hides the stuff that had a lot of time put into it. I
Right.
find
No, and that's where I do have an appreciation
sucks,
for your intellectual property. I think that is actually really important. When you brought it up, I was like, that is important for people to know. It's not just about dumping everything out there.
Well, and now everybody wants stuff like this. Like I've got a few friends who are like, just put out an EP, like you can get it done, like get it done, put it out, you know what I mean? And like I'm thinking like you don't make a record like Michael Jackson's Thriller in like a month. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't make, like I feel like a lot of people around me who are doing music, they want that. They want the fame, they want the money, they want the whatever. But I think you kind of like I mean, would it be nice to have money? Sure. But I mean, I make an okay living right now. And I know I could, teach or something and have a backup. But to me, the art is more important. And that's why I'm the same way as you. Like, I've always wanted, like, an album. Like, not just a single, not just all, like, 5 different EPs that you just throw away. I think EPs are cool and special. But to get to do my first thing, like an album would be killer. But I think it takes a lot. It takes a lot from the person, and you have to be willing to, like, 1, it's twice the money. 2, it takes a lot more time, a lot more effort. I mean, I think the money part is the reason why most artists just do EPs, which I understand. And even, like, I was just talking to my voice teacher, and he was like, yeah, I think you should raise, like, 30,000 or something to record an album. And like my jaw was like on the floor, like, are you kidding me? Like me? Like my parents do not have that kind of money, you know what I mean? He's like, you can make
how
like...
many pigs? You know how many pigs that is?
That's a lot of pigs. No, it is. And like he was like, you can make a Kickstarter, and that's always scary to ask for money. Like I mean, I would see people ask for money, and I'd be like, God, why are they asking for money, And now I'm like, oh, I might need to, like, do that. But some, like, if people believe in you and you work really hard, like, I'm willing to work and make money. I've got some money saved, not that much. But to me, I'd rather wait and, like, fund it and save and work for it. And, like, in a couple years or more or less, have an album than just, like, real quick, 6 months, have an EP out and boom, because I very much value the album, and I value my art, and I also value what I've been entrusted with to turn into something. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not just going to turn out whatever. Like, I'm going to put time into it, and I'm going to take the time, and it takes a lot of patience. But also I think I'm young, I'm 23, and a lot of these people who are putting out music are very young, and I think some do get very lucky, and they get to work with amazing producers and amazing musicians, and that they can do that, But if I'm just on my own and I don't have this crazy producer helping me, I'm not going to make something of quality. I mean, I could get close. But I think there's a lot of wisdom to be passed down from older people and from just time, Yeah. And like as far as arranging and composing and I think that doesn't get valued anymore, because people just, it's like, well, you can go ahead and get like that producer and do all that, and you can get like a real band, but I can just program these drums and I can just put in, and it's like, but that's not the point. The point isn't, that's really cool that you can do it really cheaply in your room, and I think it's awesome that we're in this digital age of like, and you don't have to have some big station studio where like these mics are so much money, but then within that comes a loss, with everything you gain, I think you lose sometimes, and I think a lot of people are losing appreciation for the art, and I have like a huge appreciation, and it sucks because it's not like back in the day, and you do read about like people, like I'm reading this book right now called Girls Like Us, and it's a biography on Joni Mitchell, Carly Simon, and Carole King, and I'm reading it and I'm like, gosh, why couldn't I have been born then? Like, I'm reading the process of how they got to make it, and how they got to work with people and make their albums and like make hit songs and all these cool things, and I'm just like, geez, like we've lost so much of that like art, and now it's just like money, There's all this crap on the radio that all my friends listen to, and I mean, it has its place, but it's just like, what are you even singing about? What are you rapping right now? Like, I feel like I'm like losing brain cells, or I feel like I'm like you're talking about the same ish, and there's like stuff going on in the world, but everyone just wants to listen to their same old pop. It's like all programmed, and I mean there are some good stuff. I don't mean to hate on like the music nowadays, but I am, because it's really lost a lot of quality. Like I don't think I hardly ever listen really to modern music. I'm always back in the day, with like Motown and soul, and I mean look at Earth, Wind and Fire. When's the last time you've heard a modern Earth, Wind and Fire? Forget it. Some Shaka Khan or something. That's why I go and listen to those. But it's just like, I mean, I would have like parties and I'd play some old stuff and people are like, what's this? And they come over and they put on their like trap rap, and I'm like, you guys really don't have like an attention, like they can't even listen to music that's not just what's being filtered on the radio. Like they have no attention span, they have no care, they don't have any developed ears for it. So it just kind of sucks because I'm like, well, I feel like I'm kind of living in the old days, which is why I feel like if you want to be successful, you do have to have a bit of a modern ear. That's why I do take a lot from older things and like whatever, but I really love R&B and I love modern hip hop and I like all that, and I'm gonna influence. I want to be relevant, because I want people to listen to me, because like, I mean, yeah, you make the art for you, right? Like I'm gonna make an album good, not because I care about what everyone else thinks, but because I'm not gonna put on an album that doesn't sound good, because that's my art and I want to listen to it. I want it to sound good. I don't care about what you think. If you happen to benefit from it because you happen to like what I've created, that's awesome. But I'm gonna make it for me, and so I'm gonna pull from my influences. But also, it is awesome when someone walks in, sees a painting you did and really likes it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like you want people to like your art. And then it creates connections, because then you can have shows and people want to come because they like it. Now you've got this amazing human connection, which I think is the coolest part about music.
Yeah.
Not just something you put out and people listen to, but you get feelings from it, and then people are like, oh my God, you really like felt this feeling that I feel, and then you have this connection with them and you can like talk. Like I think that's so cool. But yeah, I feel like people are just taking the easy route, which whatever, to each his own, but I would rather be patient.
Yeah, and let the art speak for itself. I think that's
Yeah.
to me that's the major difference, is like music is music, and music is made to entertain.
Of course.
But the artistic part of music is what generally gets lost in the more commonplace pop culture material that there's out there.
Yeah.
And the truly artistic stuff struggles a little bit more, but even if it does struggle more, there's an undeniable quality to it that for those who are trying to pay attention to that or trying to find that, they will gravitate towards it no matter what. Even if I go like, okay, I'm going to listen to the top 40 hits, or whatever, I'll listen to it and I'll enjoy some, and then some I'll be like, okay, but I always find myself gravitating to those who do persist in their art or art form.
Yeah.
And then you kind of, you start discovering other material that they've done, and then you start gravitating towards that, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting to me, because it's not about, if it's popular, it's bad. If it's unpopular, it's bad. I'm sorry, the other way around. If it's popular, it's bad. If it's unpopular, it's good, because that's not the rule. Art always tends to remain or be able to stand alone because of it being art, as opposed to just something that entertains. So in that sense, a lot of things do have their place to entertain, but to me, art is the one that truly stands. And that's ultimately what I think art is there to do. It's to remain and to last.
Yeah.
At the moment, it might have not been as relevant, and then maybe after a while it becomes this big thing, and that's normal. That's actually more normal than to think, oh, I have this song, I'm gonna put it out there, and then boom, you're
well, yeah, there's many artists who were like, people were like, oh, that album is blah blah blah, and now it's like critically, like people are just like, that's like one of the greatest albums in history, and it got so much like slack in the beginning, you know, because it was like, no, you're trying to be like this, or this is to this, and now look, it's like making the top charts. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
So thank you very much for talking with me and sharing your life experiences. I think that is really good for a lot of people to know and understand how and what a musician has to go through, you know, at different stages, at different genres or musical styles, different instruments. These are all things that have different paths but share a common thread, and they are ultimately a life experience. And I think that you've brought that here, and I really like what you had to say. I always like to go over a round of questions just to get to know you a little bit better, that I think people like to hear. So just a few questions. You can say as much as you want about it, but let's go ahead and start with them. So first of all, who is your most influential artist?
That's such a hard one. Okay, well, I didn't really get into her until like a couple years ago or something, but probably Joni Mitchell, I'd say, because I like that she really stands for whatever she believes. She's not afraid of saying it, and her music, wow, it's very like artistic. And even reading this book that I'm now reading about her, she like did whatever she wanted. You know, I guess she made an album. Well, I know she made an album called Mingus, and she got a lot of slack from the jazz community, but she made it anyway, you know, and then like she wasn't really pop, she was whatever she wanted to be, and made the music that she wanted, you know what I mean? It wasn't like trying to fit into anything. So I'd really admire that, and she's still like that. Like I listen to interviews of her, and I don't know, and I think she speaks up for like what should be spoken about, and like her songs are very honest, and I think they're really like great. So I'd say her. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, that's a very good influence to have. What was the first album music that you ever bought on your own?
Oh my God, that's a while. It was probably like either some like 90s Christian record or like the Jonas Brothers, I would say, way back in like middle school.
Yeah.
But you know, I can't, whatever the first Jonas Brothers one was, or there was this band called Jars of Clay. I don't know, super old like 90s Christian music. Or you know, what's that, Newsboys or whatever. Anyways, they're like pretty old, but maybe something like that. Oh, no, I know what it was now. Toby Mac. Have you heard of him?
I have not heard of him.
He's like a Christian rapper, but like I really liked rap, but my parents were like, you know, religious, so it was like, well, you know, and I was like, well, whatever. And then I found this Christian rap artist, and I was like, wait, this is sick. But he was actually like really cool, but like not like everything else that was going on then, and so probably that.
That one. Yeah, cool. What has been the best concert you've ever been to?
Oh, Radiohead.
Where'd you see them?
Oh, you know what? Influential artist, Radiohead, for sure. I saw them at the Santa Barbara Bowl.
Okay.
Incredible. Yeah. Do you listen to Radiohead?
Yes. I'm pointing at
I didn't even notice.
Coincidental Radiohead t-shirt that I'm wearing today.
Yeah, best
for the
band.
audience who can't see.
Yeah, wow. That's
who?
Radiohead shirt.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice. Wow.
Who do you regret not being able to see live? Whether if they passed away or you just never had the opportunity to see them live.
James Brown.
Okay, I want you to complete the next phrase. Music is best enjoyed
when you're driving.
That's therapeutical.
Yeah.
At least for me. Which song or musical piece do you wish you had written?
Hold on. Which song?
Yeah, something that you love so much. You're like, oh man, if I would have liked to have written that.
Ooh, Tell Me Something Good. Shaka Khan and Rufus.
Okay. That's been a
something
while since
Shaka
I heard that
Khan.
one.
Yeah.
Best and worst part of being a musician?
Best part, making music and doing it for your job. Worst part, the unknown. Like, I don't know, you invest a lot of time, could go well, could not go well. So I guess, yeah, the unknown.
Okay. What is the instrument you wish you could play as well as, either singing or the guitar?
Bass, probably, or drums.
Biggest guilty pleasure? Something that you're like, well, this is only for me, for me to know.
Well, now I'm sharing it if I have. I don't know. I don't know. I can't think. Like off the watch. I'll after you turn that off, I'll be like, oh, it's this.
I'll think of something and I'll cut it in. Don't worry. We'll make it really, really embarrassing. And then, what's the best advice you could give anyone?
To wake up every day and love other people and not focus on yourself, because then you will just be so depressed and find every wrong thing. So just look around you and love everyone in your day, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and experiences. Where I'd like you to, if you have places where people can find you, find your work, find your schedule, or can come out and see you play, where can they find you?
You can either look on Instagram, which my username is Anastasia Lynne, ANASTASIALYNNEE, or my website, which has a calendar that I need to update, but it's www.com. Wait.
That's the shortest website.
www.com.
I can't find this website.
It's www.Anastasia, LYNNE, only one E for the website.com. Awesome. So username has 2 E's, this one as well.
Yeah, we'll be putting the links on our page and try to help our audience find you that way too. But I really appreciate you spending time to talk with me and
thanks for having me.
Sharing, like I said, your thoughts and experiences, and it's great to have you. I
Cool.
wish you the best.
Sweet, thanks.
All right. So that was Anastasia Lynne, whom we are very thankful for being here in the studio and sharing her life experiences, particularly in her path in becoming a musician, which is something that I think our audience and anybody could both relate to if they're starting their journey or have an interest in becoming an artist, and also to basically understand that and coincidentally find that a lot of her experiences will be very similar to what other people have either gone through or will end up going through. I want to bring up the fact that after we recorded the show, Anastasia was kind enough to invite us to an upcoming gig that she had. And unfortunately, when we were getting ready to go and showed up, she found out that she had been double booked and was not able to play, which I bring up because that is actually very common once somebody is starting to play venues that are dedicated to something else and then have live music. So not necessarily a concert for the artists themselves. And I bring it up because that's part of the struggle. I mean, we dived into that topic in her previous experiences, and a couple days later she comes to have the same experience once more. So to me, it was very important to have her share those experiences and anecdotes, which ultimately, like I mentioned before, a lot of people will be able to relate to, but also allow future musicians to understand what type of challenges they might be facing within the next few stages of their upbringing. And that through Anastasia's experience, one can learn to either navigate through those challenges or try to avoid them in some way. So for that, I'm really thankful that we were able to talk in depth about those challenges that she has had over the course of her career. We invite you to follow her and find out more about her present projects and future projects, and hope that you might find an interest in her art form as well. And with that, we'll hope that you'll join us in our next episode here at the 52blu podcast. Here's Anastasia Lynne. We hope you enjoy.
6 years old.